Trust is one of the most valuable things you can give, yet most people hand it out without thinking. And that mistake is costly. A single misplaced trust can ruin your peace of mind, waste years of your life, or even put you in danger. History is filled with kings, generals, and ordinary men who lost everything because they trusted the wrong kind of person. But here's the question: who exactly should you never trust? The Stoics left us with wisdom that cuts through time, showing us the 9 kinds of people who must never be given your trust, no matter how convincing they seem. Trust is the thread that holds together families, friendships, and even entire nations. Without it, no bond can last. The Stoics understood this deeply. For them, trust was not a gift to be tossed to anyone who smiled or spoke well. It was something that had to be earned slowly, through reason and consistent action. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about examining a man's character, asking whether his words and deeds were in harmony. If they were not, then his trust was misplaced. Trust is powerful because it opens the door to vulnerability. When you trust, you place part of your well-being in the hands of another. You let them carry a piece of your peace of mind. That can be beautiful when given to someone virtuous, but dangerous when given carelessly. Imagine building a house on a weak foundation. The walls may look solid, but one storm and everything collapses. Trust works the same way. Without a strong base, it will crumble when tested. The Stoics lived in times of political intrigue, betrayal, and shifting loyalties. They saw firsthand how misplaced trust could topple empires. Yet their advice was not to withdraw from others or live in suspicion. Instead, they urged discernment. They taught that a wise person should remain open but cautious, willing to give trust only when it has been tested. Trust was a bridge to cooperation, but it needed careful builders. This brings us to the heart of the matter. Not everyone is worthy of trust. In fact, there are certain kinds of people who will always abuse it, no matter how much we hope otherwise. The Stoics were clear about this, and the first among them is the flatterer. The flatterer is the first person you should never trust. On the surface, they seem harmless, even pleasant. They are quick to praise, eager to agree, always telling you what you want to hear. But their words are not given out of honesty. They are tools, used to gain favor or hide their true motives. The Stoics warned often against those who spoke too sweetly. Seneca said that the man who flatters is more dangerous than the one who openly insults you, because while the insult alerts you to an enemy, flattery disguises itself as friendship. Think of flattery as sugar. A little sweetness may please the tongue, but too much poisons the body. When someone constantly tells you how great you are, they're not strengthening you, they're weakening you. They make you dependent on their words, blind to your faults, and vulnerable to manipulation. History is full of rulers undone by flatterers. A general convinced he was invincible marches into a trap. A leader told only what he wants to hear loses sight of the truth. The Stoics believed that truth, no matter how harsh, is always more valuable than false praise. Epictetus would remind his students that real friends are not those who inflate your ego, but those who correct you when you stray. To trust a flatterer is to build your life on lies. They will vanish when difficulties arise, leaving you weaker for having believed them. So how do you guard yourself against them? Notice patterns. Does this person ever disagree with you? Do they ever offer correction? Or are their words always soft, always approving? If it is only praise you hear, then you are not listening to a friend. You are listening to a flatterer. The gossip is another person who should never hold your trust. At first they may seem entertaining. They always have a story, a secret, something whispered in confidence about someone else. But if they carry the secrets of others to you, you can be certain they will carry your secrets to someone else. Gossip is not a harmless pastime, it is a betrayal in motion. The Stoics spoke against idle talk because it pulls the mind away from reason and toward distraction. Epictetus taught that the wise man guards his speech carefully and avoids conversations that serve no purpose. When you place trust in a gossip, you hand them the keys to your private life, and those keys will be passed around until they no longer belong to you. History provides countless warnings. Reputations have been destroyed, friendships shattered, wars even started because of rumors carried from one tongue to another. In ancient Rome, political rivals often spread whispers through gossips, tearing down their enemies without ever drawing a sword. The damage of words can travel farther and faster than any weapon. What makes gossip dangerous is how subtle it is. It often comes dressed as concern. "I shouldn't say this, but..." or "I just thought you should know." That disguise lowers your guard. But a Stoic mind is trained to look beyond appearances. Ask yourself, does this conversation build virtue, or does it spread harm? If it is the latter, you are dealing with a gossip, and their trustworthiness is already broken. To protect yourself, resist the temptation to listen. If you cut off the gossip's supply of ears, you cut off their power. Better to be known as quiet and reserved than to be caught in the web of someone who profits from other people's secrets. The hypocrite is perhaps one of the most deceptive people you will meet. They speak often of virtue, of morality, of what is right and wrong. Their words paint the image of a noble life, but their actions betray them. They preach self-control while indulging in excess. They talk about honesty while twisting the truth for their advantage. Hypocrisy corrodes trust because it hides behind the mask of righteousness. The Stoics believed that virtue is not a matter of words, but of consistent action. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man's worth is measured by what he does when no one is watching. A hypocrite thrives on appearances. They want to be seen as good, not to be good. Their concern is reputation, not character. And when you give your trust to someone more concerned with seeming virtuous than actually living with virtue, you are building your life on shifting sand. History offers many examples. Leaders who called for justice while secretly stealing from their people. Teachers who instructed others to live humbly but demanded luxury for themselves. Such figures always collapse under the weight of their own contradictions. The damage, however, falls not only on them, but also on those who trusted them. To spot a hypocrite, look for dissonance between speech and deed. Do they act the way they urge others to act? Do they follow the same rules they set? Or are their principles flexible whenever self-interest is at stake? A Stoic learns to judge not by eloquence, but by conduct. Trust should be reserved for those whose lives align with their words, whose integrity does not shift with convenience. Anything less is not a foundation but a disguise. The complainer is another person unworthy of your trust. Their voice is filled not with gratitude or resolve, but with constant dissatisfaction. Every situation is a burden, every task an injustice, every moment a chance to grumble. At first, you might think they are only venting, but over time, you will see that complaint is their way of life. To trust such a person is to tie yourself to a sinking ship, for they will pull you down into their despair. The Stoics believed that life is struggle, and the measure of a person is how they bear it. Epictetus, once a slave, endured pain, poverty, and cruelty without wasting his energy on complaint. He taught that suffering is not defined by events, but by how we respond to them. A complainer does not respond with courage. They magnify difficulties, turn small obstacles into mountains, and drain the strength of those around them. Their world is built not on reason, but on resentment. Imagine a soldier in battle who spends his time cursing the mud, the cold, and the weight of his armor. While he complains, his enemies advance. While he grumbles, his comrades lose heart. Complaining does not ease the burden, it only spreads weakness. In the same way, when you trust a complainer, you find that their focus is never on solutions, only on problems. To guard yourself, listen carefully. Do they speak with resilience, or do they always find fault? Do they accept responsibility, or do they blame endlessly? A Stoic mind values action over words, gratitude over grumbling. Trust should never rest on those who see only the dark side of every situation, for they will blind you to the light that is still present. The hot-tempered person is one of the most dangerous to trust. Anger may flare up in a moment, but its damage can last for years. Those who cannot control their temper cannot control their judgment, and where judgment fails, trust cannot survive. Seneca wrote extensively about anger, calling it a form of temporary madness. A man in rage is no longer himself. He is possessed by fire, blind to reason, deaf to wisdom. To place your trust in such a person is to put your fate in the hands of a storm. History offers sharp reminders of this truth. Roman generals who lost their tempers on the battlefield made rash decisions that cost thousands of lives. Leaders in the Senate, blinded by fury, launched vendettas that led to civil wars. Even in ordinary life, anger breaks families, friendships, and communities. A harsh word shouted in rage cannot be unsaid, and the trust destroyed by it cannot easily be repaired. The Stoics taught that anger is never useful. While many excused it as a sign of passion or strength, the Stoics saw it as weakness, proof that reason has lost control. Marcus Aurelius urged himself each morning to expect irritation, betrayal, and foolishness from others, not so he could lash out, but so he could meet them calmly, without surprise. To recognize the hot-tempered, watch how they respond under pressure. Do they grow sharper, or do they unravel? Do they pause before speaking, or do they strike with words like weapons? Anger exposes a person's inability to govern themselves, and if they cannot govern themselves, they cannot be trusted to hold responsibility for others. The Stoic path is calm endurance, not explosive reaction, and trust belongs only to those who can stand firm in the face of provocation. The two-faced person is a master of appearances. To your face, they offer kindness, warmth, and support. Behind your back, they carry daggers made of words and hidden intentions. They smile while hiding resentment. They agree while secretly plotting. They pretend to be close while working to undermine you. This duplicity makes them one of the most corrosive figures to trust. The Stoics warned against such duplicity, for it distorts the natural order of human relations. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If a person harbors deceit within, their outward actions will eventually reveal the stain. But until that moment, their mask can be convincing. That is what makes the two-faced so dangerous. Their betrayal does not strike openly but silently when you least expect it. History is full of such characters. In Rome, alliances were sealed with handshakes and broken with whispers in the dark. Julius Caesar trusted men who praised him in public but conspired against him in secret. Betrayal rarely comes from distant enemies. It comes from those who sit at the table with you, those you thought were loyal. To guard yourself, pay attention not only to how a person treats you, but also to how they treat others. Do they change their tone depending on who is present? Do they show one face to those in power and another to those beneath them? The Stoics believed that virtue is consistent. It does not bend with circumstance or audience. A two-faced person cannot live by this rule, for their loyalty is only an act. To place your trust in them is to hand over your peace to someone already rehearsing their betrayal. The self-obsessed person should never be trusted because their world begins and ends with themselves. At first, their confidence might appear admirable. They speak boldly, pursue their desires with energy, and seem to know exactly what they want. But look closer, and you will see that every action, every decision is measured only by how it benefits them. When you place trust in someone ruled by ego, you will find that your needs, your safety, and even your friendship are secondary to their self-interest. The Stoics taught that humility is the foundation of wisdom. A person who cannot see beyond their own reflection cannot serve the greater good. Seneca observed that the proud man is always at war, not only with others but with himself, because he cannot be satisfied with anything less than constant praise. Trusting a self-obsessed person is like sailing with a captain who cares more about the glory of steering the ship than the safety of the crew. History gives us striking warnings. Nero, the infamous Roman emperor and former student of Seneca, let his vanity and hunger for adoration lead to cruelty and destruction. His ego blinded him to reason, and his rule left Rome weakened and scarred. The self-obsessed do not see friends or allies, they see tools, mirrors, and audiences. You can recognize this type by their inability to listen, their need to dominate every conversation, their habit of turning even your struggles into stories about themselves. For the Stoic, true strength is not in self-obsession, but in self-mastery. Trust belongs to those who can put aside their own desires when duty demands it, not to those whose pride makes them blind to all but their own reflection. The unreliable person is another you should never place your trust in. They may speak with conviction, make promises with confidence, and even inspire hope, but when the time comes to act, they falter. Their word is light as dust, carried away by the slightest wind of inconvenience. To trust such a person is to lean on a broken branch. It looks solid until the moment you need it most, and then it snaps beneath you. The Stoics valued reliability as a mark of true character. A person who commits and follows through, even when it is difficult, demonstrates integrity. Epictetus taught that what matters is not what someone says they will do, but what they actually do when tested. Empty promises are worse than silence, because they create false expectations that collapse into disappointment. Throughout history, broken trust has destroyed friendships, armies, and nations. In Rome, unreliable generals who delayed decisions or failed to keep their word left legions stranded and vulnerable. On a smaller scale, unreliable friends vanish in moments of hardship, leaving you alone when you most need support. The damage they cause is not only practical but also spiritual, for they weaken your ability to trust others who may truly be worthy. You can spot unreliability in patterns. Do they arrive when they say they will? Do they complete tasks they promised? Or do excuses follow them everywhere? The Stoic view is simple. A man's character is proven in small acts as much as in great ones. If someone cannot be trusted with the little things, they cannot be trusted with the great. Build your life on solid ground, not on shifting promises, and your trust will not be wasted. The manipulator is one of the most cunning figures you will ever encounter and one of the most dangerous to trust. Unlike the flatterer who seeks your approval or the hypocrite who seeks reputation, the manipulator seeks control. They use words like weapons, bending truth and emotion until you are no longer sure what is real. They may present themselves as helpful guides or loyal allies, but beneath the surface their aim is always the same: to move you like a piece on their board for their own gain. The Stoics warned against those who twist reason for selfish ends. Philosophy itself, they said, can be corrupted by a manipulator who learns its language but not its virtue. Epictetus cautioned that wisdom in the wrong hands is no better than a dagger. It can cut down truth rather than defend it. Manipulators excel at disguising their intentions. They appeal to your pride, your fear, your desires, anything that will weaken your grip on reason. History is filled with manipulators who led crowds astray, politicians who stirred anger to seize power, orators who promised salvation while plotting domination. Their strength lies in convincing others to surrender judgment and follow blindly. But once you hand your reason to someone else, you are no longer free. To protect yourself, practice awareness. Ask, does this person seek my good or only my usefulness? Do I feel clearer after speaking with them or more confused? A Stoic sharpens the mind to detect distortion, measuring words against actions, promises against outcomes. The manipulator thrives on blindness, but once you see their pattern, their power fades. Trust should never be placed in someone whose main skill is bending your will away from truth. Misplaced trust carries a cost far heavier than most realize. It is not only the betrayal itself that wounds, but also the time, the energy, and the peace of mind that are wasted along the way. To give trust to the wrong person is to hand over pieces of your life you will never recover. The Stoics reminded us constantly that our most precious possession is time. Marcus Aurelius wrote that while others may steal your wealth, it is your hours and days that are truly plundered. When you invest those hours in someone unworthy of trust, the theft is silent but profound. Think of a soldier following a corrupt general. His loyalty is genuine, his courage real, but his trust is misplaced. He marches faithfully into battles that cannot be won, and in the end he loses not because of his own weakness, but because of the one he followed. Trust, when placed wrongly, binds you to the errors and failures of another. Their collapse becomes your collapse. Even in ordinary life, the cost is clear. Friends who betray you leave scars that make it harder to trust again. Leaders who fail drain not only resources but also faith in institutions. A single liar, a single manipulator, can spread damage that lingers long after they are gone. The Stoics urged us to guard our trust as carefully as a treasure. They did not say to withhold it entirely, for human life requires cooperation and connection, but they warned us to measure it wisely, to test before giving, to be slow in offering and quick in observing. For every moment spent in the hands of the unworthy is a moment stolen from the life you could have lived more wisely. Discernment is the challenge at the heart of trust. It is never easy to see people clearly. Some hide their flaws behind charm, others behind good intentions, and some even deceive themselves before they deceive others. To judge character well is to look beyond appearances, and that requires patience, wisdom, and attention. The Stoics compared this to testing coins. Just as a merchant would weigh, scratch, and examine a coin before accepting it, so too must we test a person before giving them trust. Words may shine like gold, but only action proves their true worth. This testing takes time, and that is why impatience is so dangerous. Many are quick to trust because they crave connection, and many are quick to betray because they see opportunity. The wise learn to wait. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to look for consistency. One good deed may be luck, one kind word may be strategy, but a life of steady behavior cannot be faked. A person who acts with integrity again and again, even in small matters, shows a soul that is reliable. The difficulty is that we often see what we want to see. Hope clouds vision, fear clouds judgment, and loneliness clouds reason. A Stoic approach requires honesty with oneself. Ask, am I trusting this person because they have proven themselves, or because I want to believe in them? Am I giving them a place in my life because they are worthy, or because I am avoiding solitude? Discernment is not cold suspicion, it is careful observation. The goal is not to wall yourself off from everyone, but to protect your trust so it can be given where it strengthens rather than destroys. To judge well is a discipline, and like all disciplines, it grows with practice. When trust is placed wisely, it becomes one of the greatest strengths a person can have. Unlike the flatterer, the gossip, or the manipulator, There are those who are steady, truthful, and virtuous. To give trust to such people is not a risk, but a source of resilience. The Stoics believed that a small circle of true companions is more valuable than a crowd of shallow acquaintances. A trustworthy friend is a fortress, a steady flame that does not waver when the wind rises. Marcus Aurelius relied on a handful of generals and advisors he knew would act with honesty. Their loyalty and courage preserved stability in times of chaos. This shows the power of trust rightly placed. It multiplies strength, unites effort, and creates harmony where there would otherwise be disorder. In ordinary life, too, the same is true. When you can lean on someone and know they will not fail you, your mind is free from constant worry, and your heart is lighter. The Stoics taught that trust does not mean blind faith. It means recognizing virtue in others and allowing that virtue to support you. A trustworthy person is not perfect, but they are consistent. They make mistakes, but admit them. They face trials, but do not abandon you in the storm. Their integrity is tested and proven, and so their trust is a gift you can give without fear of regret. The key is balance. Do not scatter your trust as if it were nothing, but do not hoard it as if no one is worthy. When you place it in the right hands, trust becomes the foundation of strong families, enduring friendships, and stable communities. Given wisely, it transforms from a risk into a powerful source of peace. Now we come to the moment of reflection, the turning of the mirror inward. We have walked through 9 types of people you should never trust: the flatterer, the gossip, the hypocrite, the complainer, the hot-tempered, the two-faced, the self-obsessed, the unreliable, and the manipulator. Each of them carries patterns of behavior that corrode trust and weaken the bonds of life. But the Stoics would not stop at warning us about others. They would challenge us to ask the harder question: do these patterns live within ourselves? It is easy to spot flattery in another, but do you ever exaggerate your praise to win favor? It is simple to condemn gossip, but do you ever repeat what was never yours to share? The mirror is uncomfortable because it shows that the same flaws we fear in others can quietly grow in us. Trust is not only about guarding ourselves from betrayal, it is about ensuring we do not become betrayers ourselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about examining his own soul, testing whether his actions matched his principles. The Stoic path is not about perfection, but about progress, about slowly stripping away the habits that make us less trustworthy. Each time you resist the urge to complain, you strengthen your reliability. Each time you choose calm over anger, you prove yourself steady. Each time you act with humility instead of self-obsession, you become the kind of person others can trust without fear. The climax of this lesson is clear. The greatest safeguard against the untrustworthy is to live in such a way that you yourself are trustworthy. You cannot control the actions of others, but you can govern your own. In a world where deception, weakness, and betrayal exist, the Stoic answer is to be the kind of person whose word and character remain unshaken. If you found wisdom here worth carrying, subscribe for more Stoic lessons that strengthen the mind and steady the soul.